Welcome, everybody. I am Adeshawa Josh, and this is Africa Matters. As the fighting rages on in Sudan, rights groups are accusing the Rapid Support Forces of orchestrating a brutal attack on a refugee camp in West Darfur that claimed over 1,000 innocent lives early this month. We're delving into the roots of the RSF, accusations of ethnic cleansing, and the urgent call for protection for those fleeing the violence. We begin in Sudan's West Darfur, where the UN says the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, launched an attack on an internally displaced people's camp, killing more than 1,000 unarmed civilians earlier this month. Eyewitnesses say RSF militias went from house to house, killing men, women and children, prompting thousands to flee for safety. The mass killing is believed to be the worst since April, when an alliance between the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, under General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the RSF, led by Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, disintegrated into violence over a power struggle. But conflict in the Darfur region has been going on for at least 2 decades now. So let's take a look at how it has evolved. The RSF has its roots in the so-called Janjaweed militias, who were used by former President Omar al-Bashir to crush an anti-government rebellion. The paramilitary group largely enjoys support from Arab tribes in the Darfur region, which is divided into 5 federal states comprising Central, East, North, South, and West Darfur. The International Organization for Migration says Egenaina in West Darfur has experienced the most severe fighting outside of the capital Khartoum since the battle for control of the country began in April. Rights groups accuse the Rapid Support Forces and their allied militia of systematic attacks targeting the Masalit, a non-Arab ethnic community, who are also El Genaina's majority tribe, with the latest killings of more than 1,300 people in a displaced people's camp in Adamata, West Darfur.
Our people there in Adamata were killed and displaced. Children are slaughtered. Women's money and belongings are robbed, and they can't escape.
They told me that my brother was killed, and we do not know where he is. My mother and my sister's children and I came to Chad. We don't know where my father is. We couldn't find him. They burned everything and took everything. We did not bring anything with us, only God and our clothes.
Meanwhile, the European Union says the latest killings seem to be part of a wider ethnic cleansing campaign by the RSF aimed at eradicating the Masalit community from West Darfur. But both Arab tribal leaders and the RSF have denied ethnic cleansing in El Genaina or even tribal conflict. Nonetheless, the UN agency's humanitarian coordinator in Sudan says the situation is pretty much out of control and is calling for protection and provision for the most vulnerable across the country.
We keep saying that the situation is horrific and grim. But frankly, we are running out of words to describe the horror of what is happening in Sudan. We continue to receive unrelenting and appalling reports of sexual and gender-based violence, enforced disappearance, arbitrary detentions, and grave violations of human and children's rights.
Let's hear more from Mukesh Kapila. He's an author and former UN coordinator for Sudan. He joins me from Geneva. Thank you so much for joining us again on Africa Matters. What's fueling this new escalation of violence in West Darfur?
Well, for the UN coordinator to use words like evil, it's very unusual, and therefore I think what's happening in Sudan is beyond serious. What's fueling it? Well, what's fueling it is history, in the sense that 20 years ago, when there was ethnically charged violence, which the ICC judged to be genocide in Darfur, nothing happened. No justice, no accountability, and the modern paramilitary forces, the RSF, are simply the next generation of the original Janjaweed. And then in between the last 20 years, we've had many attempts at democracy, but all of them have failed. And the army, which committed some of these atrocities under the previous leader, Bashir, who's indicted, is while he's apparently detained, his henchmen are in power. So what's fueling it? It is basically history. History in the sense that Sudan's conflicts have never really been dealt with. And these things are bubbling up and they're coming into the present with familiar echoes and devastating consequences.
And what's worse than history repeating itself is no accountability, as you rightly mentioned. Of course, the EU has described the killings as an ethnic cleansing. And even though RSF has denied the allegations, it's hard for anyone to try to fathom what is actually going on there. How would you describe what the people of Uganda are going through?
Well, I think if you go sheer by the numbers, and UN agencies are not known to exaggerate the numbers. If anything, they try to downplay them. So, but when you look at the numbers, half the population of the country in need, 6 million displaced, something like, and the FAO says this is one of the food insecurity hotspots of the world, meaning nearly 1 million children are in acute malnutrition, apart from the thousands of women who've been subjected to sexual violence and children have been subjected to abduction, etc. Well, I would call this one of the greatest humanitarian crises, if not the biggest one on the planet, if you measure it simply by the statistics. But statistics alone don't convey the horror, because clearly this is scattered over a large area. And while the world is rightly focused on the troubles of Gaza and the horrors of Gaza, and nothing we can say should minimize that, the point is that in the shadow of those other crises, we have the world's most massive crisis unfolding in Sudan. And the epicenter of that is Darfur, the remote provinces. It's too far to get there. Who's going to go there? And then there is the issue of access, how to get there, protection, and so on. So, of course, the Janjaweed, the RSF, are going to say that they're not doing it. But then, they're bound to say that anyway. But what about the government well, what's left of the government in the center? They're not blameless in this either. They have no legitimacy there. So a combination of these murderous, ethnically cleansing paramilitary forces and a feckless government which has no legitimacy, and then they are being supported by external forces around them. Each of them have got their sponsoring powers that equip them, that supply them, that give them the means to conduct this warfare, and the peace talks are going nowhere in Jeddah.
Well,
so this is fueling this.
Let me take you back to the story. The RSF already controls most of Darfur. So what does the recent violence say about them taking over the entire area? And if this is the case, should we be wary of a repeat of history, of a repeat of what happened 20 years ago in Darfur? Well,
I think history is already being repeated. So I think we are beyond the stage of being wary about it. History is making, or old history is coming back. Now, the consequences of the RSF taking over the whole of the huge Darfur region, it's a territory the size of France. We're not talking about some minor strip out there, is that we are in a de facto partition situation. So obviously what the RSF are doing are trying to create a safe haven for themselves, not for their population, but for themselves, a headquarters, a base, a center, a place where they can group, marshal, extract resources. Remember that region is very rich in gold and other precious resources. And this is a strong economic dimension to the violence that is going on. And it's basically the current chapter of an economic exploitation that's been going on for many, many years with external forces involved. So what I fear is a partition of Sudan, another one. And secondly, the involvement of external forces coming in to exploit basically hugely exploitable territory.
Thank you so much for speaking to us on Africa Matters. Mukesh Kapila, the author and former UN coordinator for Sudan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Still to come here on the program.
I am Darren Alan Cheyune in central Uganda to find out how solar basins are helping a group of women to earn smartly from washing people's clothes and improve their livelihoods.
I'm Zanem Netizaidi from Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Have you ever heard of fly breeding? Today I'm going to introduce you to a company which breeds flies and how this contributes to good waste management.
The British Supreme Court has ruled as illegal the UK government's plan to send undocumented migrants to Rwanda. A unanimous ruling by 5 judges upheld the ruling of a lower court which found Rwanda was not a safe third country, but Kigali has objected to the ruling. Simon McGregor-Wood brings us this report from London.
The legal term to describe someone forcibly repatriated to their country of origin is refoulement. The Supreme Court decided the risk of this happening to migrants in the government's deal with Rwanda was too high.
The legal test which has to be applied in this case is whether there are substantial grounds for believing that asylum seekers sent to Rwanda would be at real risk of refoulement. In the light of the evidence which I have summarised, the Court of Appeal concluded that there were such grounds. We are unanimously of the view that they were entitled to reach that conclusion.
It is a major setback for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. He has made stopping illegal crossings of the English Channel by so-called small boats one of his main political pledges. The threat of deportation to Rwanda was designed as a deterrent. Later in the House of Commons, he indicated he won't abandon the idea.
They confirmed that the principle of removing asylum seekers to a safe third country is lawful. There are further elements that they want additional certainty on and noted that changes can be delivered in the future to address those issues. The government has been working already on a new treaty with Rwanda, and we will finalise that in light of today's judgment.
The need to control illegal migration gets cross-party support, but the opposition Labour Party was quick to exploit the government's legal defeat.
He promised that he would stop the boats this year. This year. Today is the 15th of November. He's wasted all of his time on a gimmick, and now he's absolutely nowhere. Will he level with the British public and finally admit he's failed to deliver on his promise?
Just as much of a worry for Sunak will be the reaction of his own party. He's just sacked his hardline Home Secretary Suella Braverman. She has attacked him for betraying the public's trust. Her supporters want the UK to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. He will be reluctant to do that, but he is under pressure to respond. This government has made stopping illegal migration across the English Channel one of its top priorities ahead of next year's general election. And while the Supreme Court's ruling is a significant setback for Rishi Sunak, he has made it quite clear he's not willing to give up. Simon McGregor-Wood, Africa Matters, London.
There's no doubt that hygiene is a big challenge in many shanty towns. But one community-led initiative in Uganda is working to help women provide efficient laundry services in Kampala slums by turning used plastic into smart solar basins. Darren Alan-Cheyune reports from one such slums in the capital, Kampala.
For 2 years now, Sophia Nakanjako provides a mobile laundry service to the people of this area of Kampala called Kamocha. This 20-year-old mother used to use regular basins for her work, but changing her tools has improved her job.
When washing, you have to put much energy when washing. So I used to have scraps on my fingers, and secondly, like, it takes a lot of water, lot of detergents, these powder detergents, you have to use a lot of it. And thirdly, the most one, you have to concentrate on only one thing.
This solar basin is a 3-year-old creation made by a group of community-based innovators at Ghetto Research Lab as an environmental solution to dumped plastic. Most people in Uganda and Africa wash clothes with their own hands, and it requires effort to get them clean. But this innovation makes it simpler and easier to get the job done. It uses a transparent glass which detects and directs sun rays that are normally absorbed by dark plastic. The basin also has a thick black polythene plastic that converts the rays, heating the water with the clothes and detergent underneath.
By the time you come to check on the basin or on the clothes that you've soaked, you find the water is very dirty. You put it when it was clean. By now it's very dirty, and the clothes seem to be brighter.
This is not an ordinary basin. It is made of about 7 kilograms of used plastic with a slanting design to trap sunlight. It needs about 2/3 less water and is quicker than the normal hand washing of clothes. Laundry workers like Jessica Kalinda charge about $3 for their service, and because they can be efficient, demand is growing.
I'm proud of it because the solar basin now makes it easier for me, and I'm now able to get money for a meal. I'm able to pay school fees for my children, and now back in the village, we're building a house.
Patrick and his team came up with this innovation in 2020, and they have now supplied 50 solar basins to women's groups across 3 informal settlements across Kampala. He plans to produce 50,000 solar basins with power storage batteries by 2025, making them usable even without sunlight. Darren Alancheyune, Africa Matters, Kampala, Central Uganda.
For several months, a small business run by young people in the town of Goma in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo has been breeding flies, yes. And the aim is to recycle waste and feed poultry, a way of helping to clean up the environment. Zanem Nedi Zaidi reports from Goma.
These are the people behind this initiative, which consists of collecting household waste to breed flies. Everything happens in this big house where there are dozens of fly cages in which the eggs are laid, and after incubation they hatch into larvae. These are then placed in the waste to survive.
So this larvae will be harvested after some 2 weeks, and they will be given to fish and chicken so that they grow and have some proteins. Because this larvae has enough protein to make your fish and chicken grow enough in some couple of days.
The larvae feed on waste, and they are very popular with chicken and fish breeders in Goma. About 50 poultry farms here are already using the larvae produced by this company to feed their chickens.
Behind me is a hen house which has been producing larvae, which have been used to feed chickens for several months. Its owner says he is already seeing great results.
This food helps the chickens to grow up healthy. When I give this larvae to my chickens, they eat with appetite. This food is very beneficial for us. We can already produce a lot of chickens because we have found a good feed.
So far, the young company has overcome a number of challenges, the most important of which is logistics.
The city doesn't have a waste management system. We collect and sort the waste ourselves and transport it to our site, even though we don't have the means of transport to do so. All this requires substantial resources, but until then, we are doing our best to meet the challenges with our limited means.
The Greenwood Foundation hopes to increase its local workforce by recycling more wastes while preserving the environment. Zanem Netizaidi, Africa Matters, Goma.
Chad is known as an oil-rich country, but the Central African nation also has another resource that has been long the source of much of its wealth. Eunice Emre tells us more.
These butchers are working to transform Chad's largest sector. The 110 million head of cattle in the country support 40% of the population and amount to almost a third of the country's GDP. War in neighboring Sudan is further increasing the export demand from Chad. And while the country already exports around 2 million live cattle annually, livestock traders are now looking to industrialize the sector.
Before Chad, they are not following any food safety here. They are just used to slaughter animal on the street. this very unhygienic and very dangerous to their health also. Now we have set up a proper unit where we can put every food safety norms, and we are ensuring that our product is 100% safe as per the microbial contamination, as per the human consumption. And we are giving the best premium quality as we can give in whole Chad.
The shift towards new hygiene requirements for meats ensures the establishment of an industrial standard, higher quality, uncontaminated meat, as well as ease of transportation, which translates to greater profits in an already thriving sector.
There are enough cattle in Chad. You can find any number of cattle you want in the same day. In Chad, we have 8 different breeds of cattle. In all parts of the country, there are cattle breeding, and even if there are more cattle processing industries, there will never be a disruption in supply.
While variety and abundance in stock are both big incentives for importers, Chad's livestock breeding style could set it apart from its competitors.
I don't think that intensive breeding could meet demand, especially from people who want to maintain their health. We think that livestock breeding in Chad is the best way to do it. We are currently using the breeding style that we call pastoralism, and we did not want to change it. It is through this breeding that the whole program was built. This is how we are going to compete in all markets at the international level.
Pastoralists raise cattle in large fields where they are allowed to roam and graze freely. This method is increasingly popular around the world, which means Chad is fitting well in the growing trend of humane agriculture, sustainability, and organic production. Yunus Emre, Africa Matters.
Eni, an Italian multinational energy company, is producing renewable diesel for cars and sustainable aviation fuel for planes using vegetable oils. Their innovative approach was taking up in Kenya, where they are encouraging local farmers to cultivate seeds for biofuel production. Ilyas Avci brings us this report.
Maize, a crop sensitive to changing environmental conditions, often leaves farmers at the mercy of unpredictable weather, resulting in poor yields during droughts or excessive rainfall.
But since I planted castor beans, I have been enjoying a significant profit because whether there is heavy rain or drought, I still get produce.
The cultivation of castor beans in Kenya wasn't popular at first. But the energy company Eni has been actively supporting local farmers by providing free tilling services and seeds for various plants. It aims to boost vegetable seed production while cultivating a sustainable source for its biofuel production.
We had a lot of problem in selling the cotton seed because 2/3 was so much for the local market, and many farmers, many oil millers were not buying the cotton seed. So we had a problem such that much of the cotton seed used to go to waste. But about 2 years ago, the ENI came and they have contracted us to supply them with the cotton seed.
The Eni company processes these seeds into non-edible vegetable oil at its Kenyan facility. The facility has produced more than 15,000 tons since it started in 2022.
All the feedstock that we produce in the country will be utilized in the biorefinery, and the biorefinery will produce HVO, so the biodiesel, and the biojet, so the SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel. So all these products that came out from the biorefinery are products that are decarbonized.
The International Air Transport Association has said that the sustainable aviation fuel is a crucial solution in reducing the sector's carbon footprint. However, the current challenge lies in the cost disparity, with the biofuel being somewhere between 2 to 6 times more expensive than conventional kerosene. The financial obstacle is a hurdle that needs to be overcome by the airline industry in the pursuit of a more eco-friendly world. Ilyas Avci, Africa Matters.
And this week we explore the city of Mero, found in the northeast of the capital Khartoum in Sudan. The ancient city has the world's largest collection of pyramids, remaining from one of the earliest civilizations in the world. I'm sure you would have thought it was Egypt, right? Let's take a closer look. And that's our show this week. Kindly share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories you've seen on this episode, or ideas on what you would like us to cover on X using the hashtag Africa Matters. Feel free to reach out to me on my personal handle at @adeshewajosh. You can watch this episode and more on YouTube. Just search Africa Matters TRT World. Like, comment, and please don't forget to share. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.